When you live there and breathe in the energy of God realization, you will then have faith from which you can never be dissuaded. You may recall that I suggested that humans have only one problem from which all sub-problems flow. That one problem is a belief that we are separate from God. It is from this feeling of being separate that we create all of our fears, which foster doubt. Those who live in squalor and have lost their way, who are ravaged by addictions and feelings of hopelessness, believe they are alone. They have seemingly lost their soul and need to find a spiritual base. That base is love, which is the only permanent power in the universe. It is the central ingredient in healing and in all harmony. Rabindranath Tagore, the brilliant Indian poet, once said, "Faith is the bird that sings when the dawn is still dark." It is a knowing within that in any moment of darkness, light is on the way. No one can force you to have this faith. Trying to compel faith leads most often to doubt and disbelief. I will relate to you how I came to have this knowing, which once and for all banished doubt from my mind. I heard a story once that just seemed to make sense to me. In this story, you are asked to imagine what it would be like to see a junkyard filled with millions of pieces of random junk, wires strewn about, tires, cushions, machinery, screws and bolts, glass, toilet seats, and everything else you can imagine. Suddenly, a gigantic wind blows through this messy junkyard, and the pieces of junk are thrown up into the air, colliding with each other and crashing here and there. Just as suddenly, the force of the wind subsides, and there in the junkyard, where millions of pieces of trash had been, is a jumbo jet, Boeing 747, all ready to fly. By happenstance, luck, a weird coincidence, all of the parts were pieced together to make a jet aircraft out of several million pieces of debris, from rubbish to perfection by accident. As I contemplated this absurdity, I thought about how I once proclaimed such an explanation for the universe, with its zillions upon zillions of component parts, all interacting with each other in perfect symmetry, all just working out coincidentally by sheer chance. I revised my viewpoint to accommodate a newly arrived-at sense that there has to be a creative energy at work here. That simple story opened me to knowing that there is an intelligence called by many names, but essentially comprised of harmony, peace, or love, that is the source of all. We are always connected to this force that I am calling Spirit, or God. The primary value of meditation is in allowing you to make conscious contact with God, and thus establishing an inner faith that this divine presence is available at all times. This knowing within yourself that you have conscious contact with God dissolves any doubts you may have. This is what constitutes faith. Faith involves going beyond the senses to make spiritual consciousness the place that we trust, even though it is a frequency that vibrates so fast that it transcends the capacities of our five senses. When I first began writing books, I had an absolute faith that I would be able to have them published. I had nothing but a dream to work with in foster homes, in the U.S. Navy, and in college. If you have faith in your dreams and persistently stick to them, you will douse that smoldering fire of doubt. As the Buddhist proverb tells us, if you are facing in the right direction, all you need to do is keep on walking. When you affirm that things might not work out, that your troubles continue to mount, that your problems are insoluble, that God has not been listening, or that you are powerless in the face of so many struggles, you are affirming doubt rather than faith. The ability to know faith and affirm it allows it to manifest in your life. Think, write, and say affirmations like these. I intend to create prosperity. I'll do what is necessary to eradicate this problem. I know I am not alone, and I have faith that all is for good. I give no energy to bad or problems because I know all is in divine order. I will consult with God and know that I will be guided to do what is proper. These are all affirmations of faith which, when practiced, will give you an eventual spiritual solution to any problem. Give God the credit. When people congratulate me about my books and tapes and heap praise on me for my accomplishments, I always give a polite thank you, but in my heart I know better. God writes all the books, paints all the pictures, and builds all the bridges. All things are done by God. I am merely an instrument of this greater consciousness to which I am always attached. Remind yourself that a placebo is a perfect example of faith at work. You take a sugar pill believing that it contains the magical elixir to heal your tumor, to lower your blood pressure, or stimulate you sexually, and it is your faith, not the sugar pill, that causes your body to create the harmony you desire. This same faith in God's energy will bring peace and harmony to your life if you make it your inner conviction. Where there is despair, hope. When we say this line in the St. Francis prayer, we ask for the strength to bring hope to all who are in despair as well as to ourselves. Despair is a mental process that sizes up and views a situation as awful. When you just recognize despair as being a mental attitude, you begin a process of bringing hope to the inner vision of despair and dissolving it. It is impossible for hope and despair to exist simultaneously. One simply cancels the other. Often it is despair that cancels out hope. When you think about it, hope too is nothing more than a thought or a vision. In the frequency of despair, the energy is low and you feel depressed or upset. As soon as you identify with life is difficult, that is precisely what your experience has to be. A basic ingredient of spiritual energy is cheerfulness, a view of life in which one is hopeful and optimistic. The spiritual solution to any and all despair is, 1, to move your energy up by making conscious contact with God, thereby dissolving the images of negativity and pessimism, and 2, to radiate outward this higher up energy toward others who are believing in and therefore living lives of quiet desperation. It sounds absurd to say that anyone would want to be attached to his or her gloom, yet this is precisely the case. A long conditioning process of feeling that life is unfair, that someone else is responsible for my sorrows, that no one truly understands, leads inevitably to habitual thoughts of despair. Hanging on to these ideas keeps a person fixed in self-pity, which eventually turns to self-loathing. The reason for staying attached is that the individual who lives in despair never has to take the risk of accepting responsibility for their gloom or to change lifelong patterns. It is a safe haven in that it allows you to suffer in comfort. It is extremely common for people to build their lives on the mistaken notion that without certain things or certain people, they cannot be happy or free. So their attitude is, without my things, without a particular person, without money, I'm destined to be gloomy. We justify gloom on the basis of what or who is missing. In fact, we experience ecstasy when we attain an object, anxiety over losing it, and despair when it's lost. In order to transcend this cycle of attachment, we must remind ourselves of the difference between our ego and our higher self. Ego's voice is always eager to dominate with thoughts like, I am what I have, what I do, and what others think of me. If you can remain quiet long enough, God's voice will penetrate with messages such as, none of these things will bring you happiness. They are only illusions. I am your only source of peace. This is your highest self speaking. This is the spiritual solution to all problems related to attachments. In order to be genuinely happy, there is only one thing to do. That is to deprogram yourself and permanently get rid of those low-energy attachments. To rid yourself of attachments, you simply have to drop them. You do this by reminding yourself over and over that you falsely believe that the cause of your unhappiness is that someone or some things are missing from your life. Think about this. Suffering ends when you stop thinking of it as suffering. When you move into spiritual energy, the things you despair over dissolve. This thing you have called suffering is really a blessing. It teaches you to turn to God or to raise your vibration up to the frequency of spirit and to bring that loving spirit into the present moment. Most of the things that once caused me to despair in my own life were my greatest moments of growth and my introduction to devotion. The purpose of what I then called suffering was to burn up my ego and become more purified in the process. These low points of my life provided me with the energy to propel myself to a higher place. Today, more than ever before, there is a lot of talk about depression. I have seen estimates that as many as 20% of the population of developed nations suffers from depression. Yet depression itself does not exist. You cannot bring home a container of depression to examine, clean up, and eliminate from your life. There is no depression. There are only people thinking depressing thoughts. Certainly there are people who are convinced that they suffer from depression. There's an entire pharmaceutical industry devoted to mass-producing drugs to combat this diagnosis. Some professionals say depression is psychological. Others insist that it is a chemical imbalance. But one thing is sure. In our industrialized Western world, we believe depression is real. In a society that is taught to run after dollars, and everywhere there is this frantic push for money and all that it can buy, you begin to postpone even glancing at the beauty of nature, other human beings, and all of life. A contemplative spiritual life of communing with God and knowing your higher self is set aside in favor of attracting more money, yet the money does not give the satisfaction. If your entire life is devoted to that which you know in your heart is meaningless, then you give birth to the mental process we label depression. Gradually, this mental condition will infect everyone close to you, including your children. They will believe the illusion. All will react to the low-energy thoughts of depression, worry, and fear, and the health of their body begins to suffer. Could it be that the one crucial ingredient that represents a spiritual solution to this massive problem of depression is hope? In a sense, hope is the restoration of the appetite for life itself, and all of the bliss that accompanies a renunciation of the search for meaning and power in the material world. The story of Buddha is well known. A prince who had everything and realized it did not give him enlightenment. He renounced the pursuit of the material in search of a different path, which led to a place where spirit presided over the illusory world of the material. And I encourage you to replace this unrelenting pursuit of dollars with an intention of creating a deeper and a richer experience of life. Hope, then, will literally be replacing despair. Depression, clinical or otherwise, will become an impossibility. Begin to take delight in non-attachment. An attached love creates despair because you are placing the source of your fulfillment and happiness on someone else. If they refuse to cooperate in the way that you feel they must, then you move into despair. Instead, have hope for yourself. You can love anyone and appreciate him or her for who they are without telling yourself that you will be devastated if they let you down. Anthony DeMello has 2 extremely powerful affirmations in his book, The Way to Love, that will help you to experience love in a non-attached way. The first, I am not really attached to you at all. I am merely deluding myself into the belief that without you, I will not be happy. And the second, I leave you free to be yourself, to think your thoughts, indulge your tastes, follow your inclinations, behave in ways that you decide are to your liking. When you observe these 2 recommendations for detached love, you will notice that the person becomes important to you in the same way that a rainbow or a concert are lovely in themselves. You set yourself free in a compelling sort of way. Don't be an enabler of despair by commiserating with those who are feeling low. I once took a vow as a counselor-therapist that I would always seek to have my clients put the emphasis on their successes rather than the things that brought about feelings of despair. Recall past moments when you felt a degree of hope and success handling a problem, and try to recreate the thoughts and feelings that you were experiencing. By doing so, you give yourself a roadmap out of your despair. By reinforcing hope, you will act on those new thoughts and feelings. You can end an experience of despair by making a present moment decision to let it go in a moment of silent prayer. I cannot handle this situation alone. I know that you are here with me as my silent senior partner. I'm entrusting this to you. This quiet but simple little prayer will give you immediate relief from the feelings of despair. Create a picture of how you would like everything to work out and firmly make a commitment to act as if what you want is already here. If you want more abundance, get a picture of yourself as having already received material blessings. Go and sit in the car of your dreams in a showroom. Visualize yourself driving it. Then hold that picture in your consciousness. The way will be shown to you. In the midst of suffering, make a conscious effort to see the blessing. When it seems impossible to stop in the midst of turmoil and search for blessings, remember that all of the times that seemed so traumatic in the past now seem, in retrospect, to have been valuable growth experiences. The former alcoholic almost always blesses his drunkenness. The wealthy person praises his earlier poverty. Imagine yourself looking back at this particular moment and use the hope of growing beneficially from the experience to stop self-pity. Let despair dissolve into gratitude for the opportunity it truly represents. Don't let yourself be a sounding board for the sorrowful tales of others. Some people love to recite stories of despair and disaster. The more despairing the details, the more they seem to take pleasure in retelling them. In many ways, this brings the despair that they are recounting into your life as well. I find it helpful to simply let it be known that I do not choose to wallow in any despair, my own or that of others. When I am bombarded by stories such as the illness reports, the accident reports, the crime reports, and so on, I nod politely and point out the potential blessing in what I am hearing. Uncle Harry's heart attack will probably get him to be more conscious of what he eats, and it very likely may have saved his life. Grandma is now in God's hands and will never again experience any suffering. These kinds of calculated responses politely tell the person, particularly those who love to dwell on despair, that you prefer to discuss what is good about the situation. Bring hope to these kinds of bombardments, and the atmosphere immediately shifts away from despair. Endure and persist. The pain will ultimately turn to your good. This is the value of persistence in bringing hope to the illusion of despair. Whenever you encounter despair, be it in yourself or in others, remind yourself to shift to that higher, faster energy of spirit. Radiate that energy directly to what you believe to be the source of the despair. Surround the imagined source with light and the unconditional love of God. Eventually, but most assuredly, you will bring hope to that imagined despair, and by doing so, you will have taken another step toward knowing that there truly is a spiritual solution to every problem. Where there is darkness, light. This line from the St. Francis prayer asks for the strength and ability to bring light to all who feel ugly or perceive the world as a shallow, evil, or dark place. When you live in darkness, you are immersed in a world that does not allow you to see the beauty that surrounds you. Darkness symbolizes the inability to experience the true nature of our world. As John Keats describes it in his famous poetic lines, "Beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know." In darkness, one remains ignorant of both beauty and truth, since they are synonymous. When you introduce light into a dark area, the darkness simply disappears. If you enter a dark place with a lamp, the light falls on everyone who is near you. You don't have to announce, "Here I come," with the light. Everyone is automatically aware of the presence of the light, and darkness is dissolved. It's as simple as remembering that light and dark cannot coexist. The power of light is that darkness must absolutely vanish when you bring in light. In addition to thinking of light as a fast-moving energy vibration, I would like you to consider light as an attitude. That is, you can choose to either think light or think dark. When you are thinking light, you bring to any set of problems an uncontaminated clarity that can dissolve difficulties. Perhaps you have heard someone talk of surrounding a friend or a loved one with white light in times of perceived darkness. These comments reflect an awareness that light is protective and pure, that it can protect someone from harmful energies. Putting white light around a loved one is another way of sending loving thoughts and trusting in the energetic thoughts to assist in keeping the person safe. Light implies purity. When you are able to bring purity to that which is impure, you are fulfilling the wish of St. Francis, along with bringing a spiritual solution to the problem. When you enter the space of those who live, breathe, and practice thinking light thoughts, you can feel the lighter energy in the room. All living creatures cease to feel enmity in the presence of those who are steadfast in their abstention from having harmful thoughts. Impure thinking and behavior cannot stand up to the power of your pure light, any more than darkness can stand up to the presence of light. The light represents treating ourselves and others from a perspective of the golden rule. Let me do the right thing, and in so doing, I bring light to bear on darkness. When someone feels mistreated, hurt, lost, or just plain alone in their misery, it is as if they have a black cloud hovering above their head. In bringing light to this picture of bleakness, we can choose to treat others as we would like to be treated. Thinking how you want to be treated helps you to extend the golden rule to others. James Russell Lowell once said, "Light is the symbol of truth," and I would add that darkness is the symbol of deceit. Most addictions are supported and maintained by denial, which is the monster hiding in the darkness, afraid to be seen in the light. Eating disorders are almost always practiced in the safety of the darkness behind closed doors. Denial is a way of life, and the problem continues on its downward slide until that person finally allows the truth to shine in. Severe drug addicts and alcoholics often must face what is called an intervention before they finally make the decision to become free. An intervention is a direct confrontation by family and friends in which the addict is forced to hear the truth. The light shines with no room for escape into darkness, and ultimately, the addicted person goes to a place where no deception is allowed. The darkness and the problem dissolve if the person decides to stay in the light. When you live in the light and you bring this light to shine on darkness, you are bringing an unambiguous knowing to the problem. I call this aspect of light clarity. It is a knowing within yourself that you are connected to God free of any doubt. Bringing light to darkness is bringing your own clear vision of your capacity to nullify the problem with your light. When you let yourself trust the clear light to shine on any problem, you raise your energy level and access divine guidance. Here are some suggestions for bringing light to bear on the experiences of darkness in your life. Throughout the day, stop to gaze and feel gratitude for moments of beauty in your life. This may take effort when you are experiencing dark times, but it will help develop the habit of leaving the darkness behind. Become familiar with the literature of inspiration about those who have overcome darkness in their own lives. When I read about someone who has transcended darkness, such as Helen Keller, I feel a strong sense of being able to bring that kind of enthusiasm and light to any problem I might face. Lance Armstrong overcame a diagnosis of terminal cancer and survived major surgery to remove a cancerous testicle and tumors in his lungs, stomach, and brain. Then he went on to eventually win the most grueling test of physical endurance, the Tour de France, racing his bicycle over 2,600 miles in the midst of summer through the mountains. As if to punctuate his accomplishment, he won the same race again the following year. His story astounds me. It illustrates to me that we can find light in the darkest of moments and deliver that light to every obstacle that crops up. Practice seeing the light within you. Bring light thoughts to every circumstance of darkness. It is so common to do precisely the opposite. When you do, you attract more of the illusions of the dark. For example, if your thoughts are on how bad a situation is, how terrible everything seems to be going, and all you can visualize is things getting worse, you are literally attracting darkness into your life. Similarly, if you approach someone who is experiencing a dark episode with thoughts of fear and anguish for them, what you are doing is identifying with the darkness. Empathy is a wonderful high-energy quality, and I encourage you to extend thoughts of compassion and love to those who are experiencing darkness. However, I encourage you not to confuse empathy with reinforcing darkness. Think thoughts of light and love and enter the darkness with that energy. I also suggest that you re-examine fearful thoughts in bright sunlight. Thoughts that seem so terrifying in bed at night never seem to be as troublesome when you review them in daylight. I recall being a young boy living in a foster home thinking about how much I missed my mother and becoming fearful that something would happen to her and I wouldn't see her again. My mind would wander into all sorts of dark happenings and my anxiousness would increase until finally I would become frightened and truly scared. The next morning in the safety of the light, those fears disappeared, and I wondered how I could have been so frightened. Invite the light in the next time you experience morbid thoughts and notice the difference. Practice purification in all areas of your life. Begin with your own body. Drink more pure water and less cloudy liquids such as soda pop, alcohol, and coffee. 8 to 10 glasses a day of pure water flushes out many of the toxins that lower your energy levels. Allow the purification process to extend to your food intake as well. You know what is pure and what is toxic to your body. Eat at least 3 pieces of fruit a day and have fresh organic vegetables at least twice a day. Send the toxins out of your diet and notice how you feel. To complete the purification process, work on keeping your thoughts pure. Train yourself to not be judgmental and angry. By purifying your body, your thoughts, your language, you are purifying all of your behaviors and ultimately bringing in one of the central ingredients of light to shine on any and all darkness, which you may have created as a shadow on your life. When you practice deception of any kind, you invite a contaminant into your system. The truth is the light. Practice this truth when helping others, and always be totally truthful with yourself. Where there is sadness, joy. Sadness is an attitude that is habituated over a lifetime of focusing on what is wrong and missing in our lives. I love the writing of Anthony DeMello, particularly this astute observation. There's only one reason why you're not experiencing bliss at this present moment, and it's because you're thinking or focusing on what you don't have. Sadness is a habit of processing the world from a perspective of lack by constantly thinking about not having enough of what you feel entitled to, such as money, health, love, friends, or even free time. Joy, on the other hand, is a way of processing the world from the perspective of what you have and what is right. Joyful people rejoice in their strengths, talents, and powers, and do not compare themselves to anyone. They are not intimidated by the strengths, possessions, and powers of anyone else. Joy comes from rejoicing in all that you are, all that you have, all that you can be, and from knowing that you are divine, a piece of God, so to speak. Joy speeds up the illusion of time, while sadness appears to slow it down. Faster energy is spirit. Joy is spirit, and it is this fast spiritual energy that will nullify the slower energy of sadness. Most of us tend to be drawn to those who have a positive, joyous outlook. You acquire that attitude by becoming conscious of the many blessings life has given you. Moving toward purpose in your life is like bathing yourself in joy. Abraham Maslow described the ladder of self-actualization as moving up from the basic needs for food, drink, and shelter to a sense of belonging and beauty appreciation. At the top of the self-actualization pyramid is a deep sense of purpose and meaning in your life. This is where spiritual joy is experienced. Time disappears, and you are in communion with the highest aspect of yourself, or what I call God consciousness. This state of bliss depends exclusively on the quality of your thoughts. It means letting go of your concerns about how you are being perceived by those around you. It means detaching from the results you produce and instead immersing your entire being into the activities of your life. In short, perfect joy is found in the absence of striving for it, and instead realizing it is already within you. The true joy of living is in allowing the higher energies of spirit to guide your life. In this state of awareness, you never have to ask what your purpose is or how to find it. Instead, you feel purposeful in everything that you do, and you bring that kind of joy to all that you encounter. It will not matter whether you are weeding your garden, reading a novel, shoveling snow, creating your own symphony, driving through traffic, or meditating in the silence of your bedroom. You will be the bringer of joy because you are in harmony rather than in conflict with God. Perhaps the surest way to find happiness and joy for yourself is to devote your energies towards making someone else happy. If you make an effort to search for joy, you will find it elusive, largely because you will become engaged in the search itself. However, if you try to bring happiness to someone else, then joy will come to you. You come into this life with no thing, and you leave with no thing. The only thing you can do with your life is to give it away. This is the true essence of feeling purposeful. This is what St. Francis understood to be the goal of life. You may be wondering at this point if I am suggesting that you should never allow yourself to feel sad, which would be a form of denial. Of course you will experience sadness, and I do not advise you to pretend to be happy and joyful when you are not. So how do you resolve the obvious paradox? Don't attempt to fake happiness in the face of sadness. Instead, identify yourself as being aware of sadness as it occurs. Then ask yourself if you wish to stay in this emotional state. If the answer is no, then move toward a mental understanding of the sadness by recognizing that feeling sad is the result of how you are choosing to think. Sadness is purely and totally located in your mind. It does not exist in the world. By bringing awareness to sadness while you are feeling it, you give yourself the option of replacing it with joy, which is the spiritual solution to the error of sadness. If you have ever said, "I don't really know what my purpose is," I suggest that you remember that the only thing you can do with your life is to give it away. In any moment when you are reaching outside of your own self-indulgence and attempting to serve others, you are on purpose. Whenever you feel out of touch, sad, or like you are floundering, just stop in that moment and ask, "How may I serve?" Then reach out in any small serving capacity and notice how purposeful you feel. This is the bringing of joy to sadness. Helping someone across the street or going out of your way to hold the door open for a stranger are acts of purpose. Even a kind greeting or sending a greeting card are purposeful acts. They bring you joy, and they erode sadness that might exist in others or in yourself. Make a list of the people you would call if you knew that you had only one more day to live. Imagine what you would say to them. Then ask yourself, what are you waiting for? The fact is that tomorrow is promised to no one. Tell people whom you love exactly how you feel about them and why. Ask any whom you have offended or violated in any way to forgive you. If there are lingering hurts in your life, make an effort today to replace them with joy. Send flowers, make a phone call, write a letter. For myself, I have found that I never seem to have enough time to do all that I want to do, and consequently, I have no time to waste on being melancholy or feeling self-pity. Certainly I get hurt and feel sad on occasion. However, my sense of awe at everything around me, combined with my burning desire to fulfill my own destiny, leaves precious little time for being sad. Here is what John Templeton suggests in his marvelous book, Worldwide Laws of Life. There are 3 simple words that almost seem to have magical properties for developing a positive attitude in our life. Feel supremely happy. When you let yourself feel supremely happy, regardless of outer appearances, your whole body changes. Your thoughts, your facial expressions, your health, your attitudes, in fact, everything about your life changes for the better. I have tried this technique on many occasions. I simply say to myself, at this moment, regardless of anything else going on around me, I am going to feel supremely happy. And almost by magic, I am transported to a more mystical, divine energy of joy. I use also the metaphor of unplugging myself from the outlet of the physical world and plugging into God. When I get that thought and picture in my head, I say to myself, I feel supremely happy. Try it. You'll be delighted at how quickly you can move from sadness to joy. As you set about to find the place that is your mind, hunting the boundaries and the material substance, you ultimately will discover the truth. There is no place called your mind. Then the illusion is permanently dissolved by the good that is God. When you move into the energy field of God, you will never again doubt the knowing that there truly is a spiritual solution to every problem.